My CEO called me into his office and said, "Ethan, your position's eliminated. Clear your desk by noon." After 15 years as a senior accountant at Nexlify Tech in Seattle, that was my reward for catching his fraud. My name's Ethan Carter, 46 years old, and I'd spent nearly 2 decades keeping Nexlify's books clean, uncovering errors, saving millions in audits. But that Monday morning, Paul Grayson, our 38-year-old CEO, decided I was a liability. I didn't argue or plead. I just nodded, packed my things, and left. The younger accountants avoided my gaze, but I wasn't angry. I was ready. See, I knew something Paul didn't. I'd kept backups of every financial record, and those records held the truth about his $3 million scam. I started at Nexlify when it was a scrappy startup with 20 employees and a single server room. Back then, I was fresh out of my CPA exam, eager to prove myself. Over the years, I built their financial systems from the ground up, custom spreadsheets, automated audits, fraud detection protocols. I trained every accountant who came after. Me worked late nights to meet SEC deadlines and turn down offers from bigger firms because I believed in Nexlify's mission. My wife, Sarah, used to tease me, saying I cared more about balance sheets than our own checkbook. She wasn't entirely wrong. Paul joined as CEO 3 years ago, a Silicon Valley hotshot with a Harvard MBA and a knack for buzzwords like disruption and synergy. At first, I admired his ambition. He pushed Nexlify to go public, doubled our revenue, and got us listed on NASDAQ. But I noticed cracks early on. In meetings, he'd dismiss my warnings about risky investments, saying, "Ethan, stick to numbers. Vision's my job." 6 months ago, I found something odd during a routine audit. Payments to a vendor called Pinnacle Consulting, a company with no website, no LinkedIn, just a P.O. box in Delaware. The invoices were clean, but the amounts were off, inflated by 15 to 20%. Small enough to slip past casual review, large enough to add up. I dug deeper, cross-referencing bank records and approval chains. The payments, totaling $1.2 million in a year, were authorized by Paul himself. When I raised it in a private meeting, he laughed it off. "Consulting fees, Ethan. Standard for a company our size." But his eyes didn't match his smile. I didn't push. Instead, I started saving everything. Emails, invoices, bank statements, all on a secure external drive I kept at home. I'd learned long ago that numbers don't lie, but people do. The signs of trouble grew. Paul brought in a new CFO, Vanessa Klein, who'd worked with him at his last company. She was sharp, but secretive, holding closed-door meetings with Paul, and bypassing my department for major approvals. My access to certain financial systems was quietly restricted. I could have complained, but I stayed quiet, documenting every change. Sarah noticed my stress. "Something's wrong at work, isn't it?" she asked one night, pouring me coffee. I nodded. "They're hiding something. I just need to figure out what." 3 months ago, I found the smoking gun while reviewing archived emails for an unrelated audit. I stumbled on a thread between Paul and Vanessa, accidentally forwarded to an old shared inbox. "Pinnacle's secure," Vanessa wrote. "My brother's handling the transfers. Just keep Carter out of the loop." "Paul," replied, "he's too thorough. We'll need to phase him out soon." My heart sank. Pinnacle wasn't a vendor. It was a front, and Vanessa's brother was the key. I traced the company's registration to a David Klein, her older sibling, with no consulting experience. They'd been siphoning funds, and I was the only one who'd noticed. I didn't confront them. That's not my style. My dad, a retired auditor, taught me to think 3 steps ahead, so I prepared. I copied every relevant file to multiple drives, stored, one in a safe deposit box and shared access with my brother-in-law, a lawyer named Tom. I also reached out to a former colleague, Rachel, now a board member at Nexlify, letting her know I had concerns but keeping it vague. When Paul called me into his office that Monday, I knew why. Vanessa sat there, her smile tight, as Paul delivered the news. "It's a restructuring," he said. "Nothing personal." I shook his hand, thanked him for the opportunity, and walked out. They thought they'd silenced me. They were wrong. As I packed my desk, Kevin, a junior accountant I'd mentored, approached. "Ethan, this is BS," he whispered. "You're the backbone of this place." I shrugged. "Companies change, Kevin. Keep your head down." I didn't want him caught in the crossfire. I grabbed my family photo, my coffee mug, and a small notebook where I'd jotted system passwords, none of which I'd shared with IT. In the parking lot, I sat in my car, looking at Nexlify's glass tower. 15 years of my life reduced to a cardboard box. But I wasn't done, not by a long shot. At home, Sarah was waiting. "What happened?" she asked, seeing my face. I told her about the firing, the fraud, the emails. Her eyes widened. "They're stealing millions and they fired you to cover it up?" I nodded. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I opened my laptop. What I do best. Follow the numbers. That night I reviewed my drive. The Pinnacle payments had grown to $3 million over 2 years. I found more emails, more approvals, all pointing to Paul and Vanessa. I wasn't just an accountant anymore, I was a witness. The next morning I called Tom. "I've got evidence of fraud," I said. "How do I get it to the board without them burying it?" Tom thought for a moment. "Send it anonymously first, but make sure it's traceable to you if they need to verify. And keep backups. People like this play dirty." I spent the day organizing my files, spreadsheets, emails, bank records. I also checked Nexlify's public filings. Their stock was shaky, and an audit was due in 2 weeks. If the Pinnacle payments surfaced, it'd tank their valuation. Paul and Vanessa were betting on my silence. Bad bet. By Wednesday, I was ready to act. I drafted an email to the board summarizing the fraud without revealing everything. I wanted them curious, not overwhelmed. The subject was simple: financial irregularities at Nexlify. I held off sending it. The board's emergency finance meeting was Friday, the perfect time to strike. I leaned back, feeling a clarity I hadn't in months. Paul thought he'd won. He was about to learn what happens when you underestimate the guy who knows where every penny goes. The first call came Tuesday morning. I was at home, sorting through old tax files, when Paul's number lit up my phone. I let it go to voicemail. "Ethan, it's Paul. We're having issues with the quarterly audit. The new team's struggling. With your old systems, can you consult for a few hours?" His tone was casual, but I heard the edge. I ignored it. By evening, Vanessa called, then HR. Each message grew more urgent. I didn't respond. I was too busy building my case. That night, I locked myself in my home office and opened my laptop. The external drive held everything: $3 million. In Pinnacle payments over 2 years, emails linking Paul and Vanessa, and David Klein's bank records, which I'd accessed legally through public databases. The scheme was simple, but clever. Pinnacle billed Nexlify for fake consulting services, with invoices matching real projects to avoid suspicion. The overpayments went to David, who funneled a cut back to Paul and Vanessa through offshore accounts. They'd assumed no one would dig deep enough to notice. But I'm not just an accountant. I'm the guy who checks the fine print. Sarah brought me coffee, her brow furrowed. "You're scaring me, Ethan." "What's going on?" I told her everything. The fraud, the emails, my firing. Her jaw tightened. "They used you for years, and now this? What's your plan?" I leaned back. "Expose them. Not to get even, but to protect the company. Thousands of employees depend on the Nexlify." She nodded. "Just be careful. People like Paul don't play fair." Wednesday. I drove to a coffee shop across town, away from prying eyes. Using a VPN, I logged into an old admin account Nexlify hadn't deactivated. Sloppy IT, Paul. I checked the financial system. The audit was falling apart. Without my custom protocols, the new accountants couldn't reconcile the Pinnacle payments, and clients were asking questions. I also found a new email from Vanessa to Paul. Carter's drives. We need to make sure he didn't take anything. Sensitive. Too late. I had everything. I called Tom, my brother-in-law. I need legal advice, I said. If I send evidence to the board, can they bury it? Tom paused. Not if you make it public internally first. Email the board, but blind copy key employees. Forces transparency. I like that. I drafted an email to Rachel and the other board members summarizing the Pinnacle scheme without revealing everything. I held back the brother connection for now. My ace in the hole. The subject line read, Urgent Financial Irregularities. I didn't send it yet. Timing was everything. Thursday brought a surprise. Paul showed up at my house, his Tesla parked crooked, in my driveway. Ethan, we need to talk, he said, forcing a smile. The audit's a mess. I'll pay $500 an hour for your help. 1 day's work. I crossed my arms. Sounds like a problem for your new team. His smile faded. Don't. Make this difficult. We can offer a severance package, references, whatever you need. I shrugged. I'm good, Paul. Got an interview with Cascade Analytics tomorrow. His eyes narrowed. Cascade was Nexlify's biggest rival. He left without another word. That night I got a text from Kevin. Ethan, they're saying you stole data. Paul's furious. What's happening? I replied. Just watch. Stay out of it. Kevin was a good kid, but I couldn't risk leaks. I finalized my email, attaching a spreadsheet of Pinnacle payments and a single email between Paul and Vanessa. I set it to send at 7:45 a.m. Friday, 15 minutes before the board's emergency finance meeting. I also blind copied Kevin and 3 other trusted colleagues. If Paul tried to bury it, the truth would already be spreading. Friday. Morning. I woke early, feeling a calm I hadn't in weeks. I checked my safe deposit box, ensuring my second drive was secure. Then I called Rachel. Ethan, what's this about? She asked, voice tense. Check your email in 30 minutes, I said. It's important. She hesitated. Paul's been acting strange. The board's already questioning him. Is this big? I smiled. Bigger than you think? At 7:45, my email went out. I pictured the boardroom, Paul presenting his polished slides, Vanessa nodding along, unaware of the bomb about to drop. By 8:10, my phone buzzed with calls from unknown numbers, likely board assistants. I ignored them. Kevin texted, Holy crap, Ethan. The office is chaos. Paul's locked in his office. I poured another coffee and waited. The trap was closing. An hour later, Vanessa emailed me directly. Mr. Carter, your recent communication violates your confidentiality agreement. Cease all contact with Nexlify personnel immediately, or we'll pursue legal action. I almost laughed. I hadn't signed any agreement. They were scrambling. I checked Nexlify's internal server again. The audit team had flagged the Pinnacle. Payments and a major client was threatening to pull out. Paul's perfect world was unraveling. At 10, Tom called. I got a call from Nexlify's legal team, he said. They're fishing. Wanted to know if you've hired counsel. What did you say? I told them to put it in writing. They won't. They're bluffing. I nodded. Keep me posted. I spent the morning refining my evidence. A second spreadsheet showed how Pinnacle's payments aligned with Nexlify's project milestones, masking the fraud. I also found a bank transfer linking David Klein to an account in the Caymans, Paul's cut. By noon, Paul called again, his voice tight. Ethan, let's be reasonable. Whatever you think you know, we can work this out. Meet me at the office. I'll make it worth your while. I let the silence stretch. Sorry, Paul. I'm busy. Got a meeting with Cascade this afternoon, he snapped. You're making a mistake. This could ruin you. I hung up. His desperation was confirmation. He knew I had him. That afternoon, I met with Cascade's CEO, Linda Voss, at a downtown hotel. Ethan, I've followed your work, she said, sipping her latte. Nexlify's financial systems are legendary because of you. We want you as VP of Compliance. The offer was generous. a 25% salary increase, stock options, full audit authority. I thanked her but didn't commit. I needed to finish what I'd started at Nexlify. Back home, Sarah was waiting. "Any news?" she asked. I showed her the emails, the texts, Paul's voicemails. She shook her head. "They're panicking. What's next?" I opened my laptop. "The board meets again tomorrow. I'm sending them the full report tonight. Everything." She squeezed my hand. "You're sure about this?" "It's not just about me," I said. "It's about everyone who trusted Nexlify." That night, I compiled the report. Every email, every payment, every link to David Klein. I added a cover letter. To the Nexlify board, I provided evidence of a $3 million fraud orchestrated by Paul Grayson and Vanessa Klein. I'm not seeking personal gain. I'm seeking accountability, protect the company and its employees. I scheduled it to send at 6 a.m. Saturday, ensuring every board member would see it before their morning coffee. I leaned back, picturing Paul's face when the truth hit. He'd underestimated the wrong guy. At 6 a.m. Saturday, my report hit the board's inboxes. I pictured them opening it over coffee, eyes widening at the evidence. $3 million stolen, emails exposing Paul and Vanessa, bank records tying it to David Klein. By 8, Rachel called. "Ethan, the board's in an uproar," she said. "Your report's legit?" "Every word," I replied. "Check the attachments. There's more if you need it." She exhaled. "Paul's denying everything, but Vanessa's sweating. We're calling an emergency session. Can you come in?" I paused. "I'll meet you, but not at Nexlify. Neutral ground. The board needs the full picture." We agreed on a downtown law firm at noon. I drove to the meeting with my laptop and primary drive. The board had reserved a conference room, and 7 members were waiting, including Rachel. Paul and Vanessa weren't invited. A good sign. I laid out the pinnacle scheme, $3 million diverted over 2 years, invoices inflated by 15 to 20%, David Klein as the front. I showed the emails, bank records, and Vanessa's brother's connection. "They fired me to cover this up," I said, "but I've got backups in 3 locations. If anything happens to me, it goes to the SEC and the Seattle Times." The board chair, Harold, leaned forward. "Why not go public first? Why us?" I met his gaze. "Nexlify employs 2,000 people. I don't want to tank the company, just the people stealing from it." Rachel nodded. "What do you want, Ethan?" I set a folder on the table. "Paul and Vanessa suspended. Pending investigation. Forensic accountants brought in. And I want my job back, not as an accountant, but as Chief Compliance Officer reporting to the board." Harold raised an eyebrow. Bold. "We'll discuss it." I left them to deliberate, feeling a weight lift. I'd done my part. The truth was out. By 3 p.m., the board acted. Paul and Vanessa were placed on administrative leave. A forensic team was hired to trace the funds. Kevin texted, "Paul's office is being cleared out. Cops are here." I didn't respond. I drove home, where Sarah was waiting. "Did it work?" she asked. I smiled. "Better than I hoped." She hugged me. "I'm proud of you, Ethan. Not for revenge, but for doing what's right." The next week, the forensic team confirmed my findings. Pinnacle had funneled $3.4 million, with $1.8 million traced to David Klein's accounts. Paul had received $600,000 in kickbacks, Vanessa $400,000. Both faced criminal charges: wire fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. David was arrested in Delaware. The board recovered $2.1 million, enough to stabilize Nexlify's stock. The news broke on local business sites. Nexlify executives under investigation. No names yet, but everyone knew. Cascade Analytics called, offering a VP role. I thanked them, but declined. The board had accepted my terms. I started as Chief Compliance Officer with full audit authority and a corner office. Kevin took over my old role, and I mentored him like I'd always done. The company thrived, signing 2 new clients who'd heard about our house cleaning. I built a new fraud detection system, fully documented. No single points of failure. Nexlify was stronger than ever. Paul's trial came 6 months later. He pled guilty, got 5 years. Vanessa fought the charges but lost, sentenced to 3. David turned state's evidence, exposing 2 other scams Paul had run at previous companies. I didn't attend the trials. I was too busy ensuring Nexlify's books were bulletproof. One evening, I got a call from Linda Voss at Cascade. "Ethan, you made waves," she said. "If you ever change your mind, our offer stands." I thanked her. "I'm good where I am," I said. Work wasn't the only change. Sarah and I started taking weekends away, something we hadn't done in years. We drove to the Olympic Peninsula, walked rain-soaked trails, and talked about the future. Our daughter Emily was finishing college, and we planned a trip to see her graduate. Life felt full again, not just ledgers and deadlines. I hadn't realized how much I'd let work define me until I took it back on my terms. One afternoon, Rachel stopped by my office. "The board's talking about you," she said, smiling. "They want to expand your role, corporate governance oversight." Interested? I leaned back. "Let me think about it." I wasn't in a rush. For the first time, I was exactly where I wanted to be. She nodded. "You know, Ethan, Paul never saw you coming." I shrugged. "Most people don't. I'm just the guy who balances the books." The office dynamic shifted. Colleagues who'd avoided me during my firing now nodded with respect. Kevin thrived, leading the audit team with a confidence I'd helped build. The board approved my budget increase, unanimous vote, no questions asked. Nexlify's stock climbed 10%, and we landed a government contract, all because the company was clean. My systems, my vigilance, my refusal to stay silent had made that possible. I thought about Paul sometimes, not with anger but curiosity. How had he justified it? $3 million, a corner office, a Tesla. Was it worth 5 years in prison? I'd never know. Vanessa, too. She'd been sharp, capable, but chose greed over integrity. David Klein, the silent partner, had crumbled fastest, spilling everything to avoid a longer sentence. Their world collapsed, not because I wanted revenge, but because truth has a way of surfacing. One evening, Sarah and I sat on our porch watching Puget Sound's waves. The sun dipped low, painting the sky orange. "Happy?" she asked, squeezing my hand. I thought about it. The anger from that Monday was gone. What remained was purpose. "I'm good," I said. "Better than good." My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "Board approved your governance role. Start next quarter." I smiled, sliding the phone back into my pocket. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's exposing the truth and building something stronger from the ashes. I hadn't set out to ruin Paul or Vanessa. I'd just done what I'd always done, followed the numbers to the truth, and in the end, that was enough. I looked at Sarah, the woman who'd stood by me through late nights and lost jobs. We didn't need to say anything. The waves kept rolling, steady and sure, like the life we'd reclaimed. Years ago, my dad told me something I never forgot. Numbers don't just tell stories, they reveal who people are. Paul's numbers showed greed, Vanessa's betrayal. Mine? Persistence. I'd balance the books, not just for Nexlify, but for myself. And as I watched the sunset, I knew I'd come out on the right side of the ledger.